He's been here for 20 years. This is starting his 20th year. And I want to kind of share a couple of things, both what's happened on the field and what's happened off the field. He's been the coach for 19 years, head coach, and we made the tournament all 19 years. So it's been great. And the NCAA changed the tournament format for softball to add an extra week, and essentially what's equivalent to the Sweet 16 we're familiar with that in basketball. The 13 years that we've had that format, we're the only team in the country to have made that all 13 years. We've made the College World Series 11 of the last 19 years. We won 5 SEC regular season championships, 5 tournament championships, and we won the national championship in 2012. He's wearing his bling today for that.
I don't get to wear it very often, so.
You can't type with that. You can't text with that on. But, and also, in addition to success on the field, we have numerous All-Americans, including the most dominant athlete that's come out of Alabama that nobody knows, Kelly Kretschmann, who I think in any sport, she was an All-American here, and then she's done great at the Olympic team, and now she's dominating even as an elder statesman of the National Pro Fast Pitch. She hit 500 this year in the regular season, which is amazing against the best pitching in the world. So we've had a lot of success on the field. But that success hasn't been that. In addition to that, he's been a tireless promoter of the program. Alabama's led the country in attendance for 10 years now, 10 straight years. Sold out every year in season tickets since 2008. More people have seen live softball, college softball, in the Rhodes House, the Rhodes Stadium up here, than any other venue in the country other than Oklahoma City, where the championships played. And I don't have the numbers on this, but I bet more people have watched this on TV than any other venue in the country. So a lot of success in terms of bringing people to the sport. And he's going to talk a little bit about that. But the other thing I would say, and I don't know if he realizes it, but his tireless promotion of the sport has also helped Alabama, the state of Alabama. 20 years ago, when the SEC got into college softball, Alabama, California and the West Coast had a 20-year head start on us. As a matter of fact, girls were still playing slow pitch softball 20 years ago, and some parents had to threaten to sue the Athletic Association to get them to offer fast pitch. You fast forward to today, 9,500 girls play fast pitch softball in Alabama. That's more than any other sport. It's pretty close to volleyball, but more than any other sport. More than basketball, track and field, soccer, any of those other sports. Which is remarkable in itself, but also more girls play softball in Alabama than any other southern state than Florida. More than Georgia, more than Mississippi, more than Tennessee. And we're the 11th in the country in participation. We're the population 23rd. So you can see it's quite a sport. And a lot of it has to do with the generosity of Coach Murphy in terms of sharing what he knows with the sport with people like me. I coached travel ball for 10 years. Shared how to coach the sport, how to coach your athletes, how to be successful. And right now, girls who play softball at a high level in Alabama are competitive with anybody in the country. And that success in marketing the sport is also part of, I think, his legacy. And in 2013, as a result of what he's accomplished on the field and how he's advanced the sport, he was made a member of the National Fast Pitch Coaches Association Hall of Fame. And so, our speaker today, Coach Patrick Murphy.
Thanks, Jay. I can stand anywhere, or do you want me up here?
Wherever.
Well, first, this is for Jay.
Oh.
This is the #1 seller at camps. It's the Alabama softball bucket hat.
Okay.
And then I have 3 caps if anybody had a birthday lately, or if you bought season tickets, you get a hat for sure. Jay has been my go-to. I don't know if he realizes this, but he's just been an incredible person for me. I lost my dad when I was 21, and I looked for role models, especially male role models. And last year, we got stuck with Minnesota in our regional. And they do the selection show on Sunday night on ESPN, and it comes up and it says #1 Florida, and then the bottom bracket was us, Minnesota, Louisiana Tech, and another team. And I looked at my SID, my sports information director, and I said, "Are we going to Minnesota?" Because they were 56-3. And he said, "No, they're coming to us. We're the 16th seed. They're the 2 seed. They were the #1 team in the country." It was like the biggest controversy ever in college softball. So who do I call to for advice? Jay. How do I handle this? And he's like my press secretary. And he gave me the best advice. And at our banquet, and Austin Dare, who was the father of Chandler Dare, still the father of Chandler Dare, who played on our team, he can vouch for me because exactly what Jay told me to say about that situation, I relayed it to everybody at our banquet. And by the way, there was a gentleman there that is the husband of our game day manager. And when I got done with my little spiel, he looked at his wife and said, "Murph's a badass." I didn't really think it was that big of a deal. He loved it, Jay.
Oh, great. Well, great.
So he gave me great advice. Last Thursday, about 2 weeks ago, a young lady from the Culver House College of Commerce emailed me. Courtney Miller, some of you guys might know her. And she said, "Hey, would you speak at our fall get-together?" And I was kind of surprised it was only 2 weeks' notice. And I looked at my calendar. I said, "Sure." I said, "Where is it? How many?" And she said, "Ross Bridge," which this has been the best speaking engagement ever. I walked across the street. Ross Bridge, 45 minutes away in Hoover. I said, "Yeah, I'll do it." She said, "We'll get you a room if you want it." I said, "Well, who's the crowd?" So she sends me another email with the list of attendees. And I almost called her back and said no. 9 pages of CEO, president, CFO, vice president, CEO, president of all these major corporations around the country that graduated from the University of Alabama Business School. So I was like, oh my God. And when I started my speech that day, I said, I feel like I'm in a Sesame Street skit. And I don't know if you guys remember the one of these don't belong with the other. That was me. But at the end of the night, it was awesome. Just super, super nice people. And I always say to my team, what's the easiest way to have 100 friends? And the easiest answer is to be nice to 100 people. I got my graduate degree at Louisiana Lafayette, and it was a mass communication, but an advertising PR emphasis. And it's really served me well. I will take any and every idea from you guys in order to help me fill my stadium. Because when I came to Alabama, I did not want softball to be a black hole of money, because that's usually what happens with the women's sport. They give you the stadium, they give you the scholarships, they give you the kids, and then they say, go play. Well, I didn't want that, I wanted people to come and watch us. And one of my big turning points in attendance was we won our first SEC championship. And when you win an SEC championship at Alabama, you get to go to the 50-yard line in a football game in front of 101,000 people, and they present you with your rings. And as we were walking off that night, I turned around to my smartest kid on my team, and I said, what percentage of these people would come to our game? And she said, oh, Murph, geez, it's like less than 1%. And I said to myself, if I can't get frickin' 1% of these rabid Alabama fans to come watch my team play, they need to fire me. I was serious about it. So that year, I really started to get season ticket people. We had like 450. That next year, 750. The next year, 1,000. The next year, 1,250. And this past year, we sold more season tickets than 4 Division I football programs. Nice. So we still have not made a profit. That's still a goal. Just a penny. Just a damn penny. I want a penny. But 3 years ago, we were the 3rd highest revenue producer at Alabama. And a lot of people, and thanks for that introduction. I didn't know half that stuff, so that's why Jay's a good guy. Football, obviously, men's basketball, but the 3rd highest revenue producer at Alabama was women's softball, which I didn't know that either until I read it in the Tuscaloosa News. So, I want to give you just a little bit of and Jay, everything you said in your 5 for 5 about culture and trying things, and that's us. So we have, there's a gentleman called, his name is Tim Elmore, and he runs a company called Growing Leaders in Atlanta, and he is incredible. And if you have kids, he writes books called Habitudes, and they are the best thing ever. He comes to Alabama and works with our athletes. He does the entire state of Georgia, education-wise. He's in Nebraska now, he's in Texas, but his whole company is about growing leaders. And he is probably the #1 expert on Generation I, Y, and Z, which, they make 1,000 decisions a day. When I was their age, I made like 10. That's how different their world is compared to ours. So I'm recruiting these kids, so I want to know about them. But one of his things is he thinks that younger kids learn more with pictures and images than just somebody lecturing. So I'm going to show you some pictures. So when he writes these habitude books, he has two contrasting images, two pictures, and he tells a story. And he suggested, I went to a conference one time, and he said, why don't you write your own habitude about your program? So I took him up on it. So mine is called store-bought versus homemade, and this is kind of the culture at Alabama softball. If you were to come to a game or practice, hopefully you kind of get into that. So the first one is store-bought. This is not us, okay? This is a cake that you get at Edgar's. You could get it in Birmingham. You could get it in Des Moines, Iowa. You could get it in Paducah, Kentucky. You could probably get it in Sacramento, California. And if you knew me, you would know that the way to my heart is through baked goods. Cookies, cakes, pies, whatever. So if anybody has a good red velvet, bring it on. However, this is also a lot like many, many Division I athletic programs. It was not made with love at all. They don't know who it's going to. There isn't a name and there isn't an age. It was mass produced. It's like in a factory, the assembly line. Get them in and get them out. That's what a lot of teams do nowadays. There's no culture. It's all about winning first. And our culture is about the person first and the athlete second. So Chandler Dare knows whether she goes 0 for 4 or 4 for 4, Murphy is still going to love her at the end of the day. It's not her performance that's the best thing about her. Because also, too many parents and coaches, if she does go 0 for 4, she's worthless. And it's more so with women than men, because women do not want to disappoint the people that, whoever their leader is. It's just part of you as a female, I think. So I want them to know that it's person first, athlete second. So store-bought is not us. This is not Alabama softball. We're homemade. And this would be us. Happy 16th birthday, Tracy. And if you've made a cake before, especially homemade, if you frost it too soon and it's hot, you ruin the top of it. And I've done that before. And then what I do, Jay, is I get more frosting and I just pile it on. And then I get that piece of the cake. So this was made with a lot of love for one individual person. She knows that whoever made this truly loves her. And it's person first, athlete second. So this is us, not the store-bought cake that you get anywhere in the country. That's why we've been to 19 straight NCAA regionals, and we're the only school in the country that's played in all 13 super regionals. I think that's why we win. I don't have 5-star athletes from everywhere. I'd rather take a Chandler Dare, who's a great kid, who worked her butt off for 4 years, was a 4.0 student, got her master's degree in 4 years. I'd much rather have that great kid than an awesome athlete who's a shitty kid. I don't want that person. So some of the things that we do to cultivate our fans, and again, I don't miss lunch. So if you ever want to go to lunch, Jimmy, I heard you've got really cool driving skills. Is that true? I'll pick you up. I'd love to hear if you have any ideas. I would love to hear them. So first thing, every fall, usually after Christmas break, so winter I should say, we have a think-a-thon in our offices, and all the kids sign up for 30-minute time slots. I have a script, and they call every booster or season ticket holder. The kids take probably 20 to 25 on a list, and they just call and say, this is Chandler Dare, I'm a member of the softball team, and they have the script, and the calls, you guys would just be amazed at what one phone call can do. One gentleman, I'm going to hold it together here, his wife had just died. And they'd come to softball for like 13 years. And it was the thing they did together. And the lady that called, Kerrigan Fain, was the nicest kid in the world. So she talked to him for 45 minutes, just about their time together. So that guy is going to remember that phone call forever. And you never know. That was just a random chance that Kerrigan got him on the phone list. He picked up the phone. I teach them how to write a proper handwritten thank you note. As a senior, they usually get a box of thank you cards and a box of stamps, and they know what to do with them. When they go to a job interview, anybody that they meet, they get a business card, and they ask, and if they don't have a business card, they say, what's your name and what's your title? There's to write down everybody that they meet. At the end of the day, when they go back to the hotel, they put all their business cards on the desk in the hotel room. They get out their thank you notes. They write a card. When they get up the next morning, when they go to the hotel, they take the cards down to the hotel desk and say, will you mail these for me, please? The goal is to get the card to the person before they get home, okay? Every kid is taught that. We had a young lady that went to Chevron in Mississippi one year. She had no business going to Chevron for a job interview. I don't even know how she got it. But she did all those things. And she introduced herself. We teach there's 8 steps to a professional handshake. She did all the 8 steps to a professional handshake, and Linda can tell you that it's a strong handshake because she got 18 of them and her hand was almost broke by the end of it. So there's no dead fish handshake. Well, Jackie did everything that she was supposed to do. Her name was Jackie Wilkins. 2 weeks later, the secretary went into the, it was the 3rd guy in charge of Chevron, so it was a way high up dude. And she said, hey, you made any decisions on that job, you know, that we interviewed a couple of weeks ago? And he said, no, I'm still deciding. And she said, oh, I know who you're going to hire. And he said, you do? She said, yeah, that tall blonde from Alabama that played softball. I've worked here for 22 years. She's the only person that's written me a handwritten thank you card. That's who we're going to hire. She got the job. She's now on her 3rd promotion, and she lives in Midland, Texas, which isn't the greatest place in the world, but she's driving a BMW and doing really, really well. And her donation to the Booster Club better go up. Another thing we do, when we go to the World Series, I bring like a ton of thank you cards on the plane. We get to charter, and it's like Christmas for our team. We're like major leaguers. Everybody gets 25 cards and envelopes, and they have the list of season ticket holders, and they write them a handwritten thank you card. And then we mail them in Oklahoma City, so when they're watching the World Series, they get a card from us. And again, that's just the littlest thing in the world, but it means a lot to them. We hand deliver season ticket packages. You guys have probably seen this. Has anybody gotten one delivered to their house? Okay, then you guys need to start buying season tickets. We go on a Sunday after practice in February, and it's usually 2 in a group. They're instructed they can't take food, they can't come in, you know, no NCAA rules. They always have like 5 or 6 to deliver. It's in the local Tuscaloosa Northport area. And I went to an older lady's house one time. I knocked on the door. She said, who is it? And I said, it's Coach Murphy. And immediately she says, no, it isn't. And I think I had a hat on, and I probably had some weird stuff on, you know, not practice stuff or game clothes. And I said, yes, it is. I know who you are, you know. And then all of a sudden I see, you know, her blinds start to stretch. And boom, the door opens. She's standing there in her robe, jumping up and down. It's Sunday at 6, and she got season tickets for the first time in 4 years. She was on the waiting list, and she couldn't believe that Coach Murphy was there to deliver. So I got a big hug, and I did go in because it was Super Bowl Sunday, which was really stupid on my part. And I watched a little bit of the Super Bowl with her family, and then I got up. So that's another thing. And if they're not there, we write a note, and we say, sorry we missed you. We'll get you next year. Well, people have taken pictures of those and sent them to me, and they're so upset that they didn't get to see Chandler or Jackie Trainer at the door. Another thing, and I'm sure that no other coach would do this, and I just have enough faith in my players, is before a pregame, usually once or twice a year, we have a hitting group, a cage group, a defense group, and a running group. So that's our pregame routine. I get rid of the running group, and they're happy about that. And that group of girls, usually it's 4 or 5, they go up to the crowd and walk through the stands and shake people's hands and say thanks for coming. So every member of the team goes into the crowd at least once or twice a year before a game. I'm at a sport that I can do that. My stadium seats 4,000. You know, if football tried to do that, no, they wouldn't get out of the crowd. But our crowd loves it. They get to say hi. And I really think that if someone believes that they know the player, they physically touched her, they shook her hand, they will come back. Because they'll say, oh, I know Chandler Dare. I met her at the game. And then they're going to come back. One of the last things, we host camps and clinics all the time, because I really think it's important to have younger kids start to become fans. And one of the coolest things about doing the camps and clinics, I'll be at Nukes. And one time I had a 28-year-old nurse that came up to me. That's how old I am. I went to a softball camp when I was 14. I was like, oh my gosh, how old are you now? And so she told me she was a nurse, and she said, I got to tell you, I got married last summer, and 2 of my bridesmaids were girls that I met at camp. They had stayed friends, you know, for all those years. So it really meant a lot to me. But when they come to camp, they get to know the players. And that is a huge bond, because the camp staff is almost always all players. And so they get to know them. They feel like, you know, I follow, you know, Haley McClinney on Twitter. And then when they come to games, somebody has to bring them to the game. So mom or dad, or mom and dad, come with them. And that's a key. One of my early marketing tries was, because we were brand new. You know, we didn't have softball when I started. It was a brand new sport. We never had it. I was the assistant coach the first 2 years. And we played at Sokol, and then we got an upgrade to Bowers. And then in the 4th year, we finally got our stadium. And I told all our recruits that we were waiting for everybody in the SEC to build their stadium, but we were going to build the best. And really, it was. And to this day, it's the largest stadium on-campus facility for women's softball in the country, and that's why we lead the nation in attendance. You know, we were the first team ever to average over 3,000 fans a game for softball. You might think, oh, 3,000. Well, Bryant-Denny holds 101. The Coliseum holds 15,500, and ours holds 4. So 3,000 is a really good number for softball. But one of the first things we tried, I had 4 pitchers, and I said, we're going to pitch at a timeout of the Kentucky-Alabama men's basketball game. I got it okay. And, you know, the marketing people were like, well, how much time do you need? I said, 60 seconds. I mean, like less than 60 seconds. They're going to sprint out to half court. The pitchers are going to throw. The PA can announce every pitcher and catcher. They can wave to the crowd. The rest of the team is going to go run through the crowd with schedule cards and just throw them out. Everybody has a uniform on. It'll be quick. I just want them to see what a fast pitch looks like, because most people in the crowd were expecting this, right? Slow pitch. Perfect timing. The girls come from the back gym. They come up to me at the edge of the court, and I turn around, and I'm like, what have you guys been doing? They were just drenched with sweat. I said, my God, how long did you warm up? And they were all like, you know, 5 to 8 minutes. Well, they were nervous as hell. Because it was Kentucky. Dick Vitale was on the court side. ESPN was doing a game. And then they look up, and there's 15,000 people, and they're like, we've never done this before. I said, you'll be fine. So the PA says, let's welcome Alabama softball pitchers and catchers. And everybody claps. Well, it got quiet for like 2 seconds. And our hardest throwing pitcher threw a pitch. And thank God the catcher caught it perfect in the pocket. And it popped. And the whole crowd went, like that. And I was like, okay, this is going to be good. Well, one small negative. Right before we ran out, there was a horrible call. And it went against us. The crowd was booing as our girls sprinted on the court. And one of them looked over at me like, why are they booing us? And I'm like, it's not you, just pitch. Well, one fan in the student section, who I absolutely love to this day, I wish I knew who it was, he starts chanting, hit the ref. And when at a timeout, the one referee stands right underneath the one basket. he had made the bad call. The catcher is right there. Right there. And I'm like, oh my God, they're going to hit the ref. Well, she did make like one wild pitch, and it was the funniest thing ever because it was the parting of the Red Sea, and it got away from the catcher. It didn't hit anybody. But the whole student section went like this. Whoa! And the ball hit a bleacher.
Wow.
But at the end of the timeout, they threw T-shirts into the crowd, and the one junior pitcher, I'd given her a T-shirt. I said, your job is to go over to Dick Vitale and say, welcome to Alabama. Alabama softball loves you. So she sprints over to the scorer's table, the press table, gives him the T-shirt. He stands up, shakes her hand. I watch it all. She sprints off, and they're just like, it's like exhilarating, you know? They got a really good ovation. The student section loves them. And then at the end of the timeout, when it comes back on broadcast, Dick Vitale says, an Alabama softball player almost hit a ref. He pitched at halftime. You know, and he's making up all this stuff. But then he says, and the best thing is I got a T-shirt. So he showed the T-shirt on TV. Cheapest, best way ever. Everybody on ESPN saw it, and 15,000 people saw it. I also like to market the stud each year, and our stud this year is hopefully going to be Alexis Osorio, who's our pitcher. And if you haven't seen her, you need to watch her pitch. She's just unbelievable. We're going to just try to get her face out there. It's just like the quarterback in softball or football. The pitcher in softball is the same situation. She was first team All-American. Just a great, great kid. Very quiet. Social media. Alabama softball is the most followed softball team on Instagram and Twitter in the country. It's not even close. Okay, if you were to put all sports together, we would be the #1 followed team after football, basketball, and baseball of any sport. I'm the most followed head softball coach on Twitter, and I try to be active on it. And our seniors come over to my house for dinner before the season starts. And I have about 10 questions I ask them. And one of the questions is, how would you like this team to be portrayed on social media? And they give me one word each. And usually it's classy, you know. And then I tell the entire team, this is what the seniors expect out of your social media, because it can be pretty bad. And our girls follow a lot of other girls on other teams, and probably at least once or twice a semester, one of them comes up to me and says, thank God, you know, so-and-so isn't on our team because her Twitter is god-awful. And it's just not good to have a negative presence on Twitter. 10 things. This is my David Letterman list. Okay, this is some really important people in this room, so I want you guys to know this. Jay gave you a good head start, but I'm going to give you 10 things that you should know about Alabama softball, but probably don't. Okay, and I gave away a couple. Okay, number 10, we sold more season tickets than 4 Division I football programs, and thank God I'm not at one of those schools. We're the only school that's played in all 13 super regionals. We have led the SEC with 11 Women's College World Series appearances. Number 7, we've led the nation in attendance actually 13 straight years. Number 6, we've been to 19 consecutive NCAA appearances, and it's the 4th longest streak in the country, and like Jay said, we're 20 years behind most schools. Number 5, over the past 10 years, Alabama softball has led the SEC in academic All-Americans with 18, including Chandler Dare last year. In 2017, Alabama softball had one of the highest team GPAs of over 300 Division I softball teams with a 3.6745 team GPA. 3, we had 2 members of Team USA win a World Championships in Vancouver, British Columbia, and Jacqueline Trena and Haley McClenny. This is one that I had to look up because I wasn't sure, but we had an All-American pitcher for the 13th consecutive year last year in Alexis Osorio. We have a kid coming in the next year, and I can't tell you her name because it's against the rules, but I have a 6'1", 18, a 6'2", 19, and a 6'20", 2020 pitcher. They're all committed. And when I get a pitcher committed, I call home to my mom in Iowa, and I say, hey, Mom, I'm going to have a job till 2023. And every time she says, oh, you got a new contract. I said, no, I got a pitcher. And then the number one thing you should know, you probably don't know about Alabama softball, is over the last 10 years, the winningest program in the country is yours, Alabama softball. So if you guys have any questions, or if you have any suggestions, I would love to hear stuff. Or even if you'd like to email me after and say, I've been to a game and you know what, this could be better. Because those things help us. Because I want to know, I'm never in the crowd, This past summer we hosted the USA team, and I was in the crowd, and I was shocked at the line for the bathroom and the concessions. And I took pictures of it, and I sent it to my boss, and I said, I hope this doesn't happen in a regular season game, because the line to the concession was 10 deep, and they missed probably 3 innings of the game, and that should not happen. So, but if there's no questions, Jay, I appreciate the opportunity. Hey, who has season tickets? Who's been to a game? You ready? Good catch. Here's another one. Get ready. Yeah. Oh, and one more, right here in the red.
Oh, well, there.
I have one question.
Yes.
When are you going to start doing the Patrick Murphy show?
I don't know. That's.
I've been asking that question for about 4 years now.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
She said, when are we going to start doing the Patrick Murphy TV show? I don't, that's beyond my.
Well, thanks for. I'll tell the story. Thanks for going. I'll tell a story. I was at a softball workshop one football season. It was the first year Coach Bateman was here. It was the weekend we lost to Louisiana Monroe, and so we're sitting there looking at the score, and we're going like, really, this is what we're going to get? But the things turned out differently. So, but thank you so much for coming. Appreciate it. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Deidre, did you have any other things to do?